Welcome to the Future is Gold podcast series, hosted by Alexandra Cosma. We believe in empowering you to take control of your future so you can live the life that you want. And we do that by allowing you to buy, send, spend, earn and secure the world's oldest currency, gold, while being supported by modern technology. At Nuggets, our mission is clear. We're making gold accessible for everyone by giving you the knowledge and expertise needed to make informed and smart financial decisions that benefit you.
Hi, and welcome back to episode 7 of the Future is Gold podcast. I'm your host, Alexandra, and on this episode, we are discussing something that's a bit of a hot topic at the moment, the industry disadvantages that women face in securing their wealth and how they can overcome these challenges. It's no secret that men dominate the fintech space. While in Australia, women now comprise 47% of the workforce, sadly, we continue to be left behind when it comes to securing wealth for our future and retirement. The latest census data reported the number of women over 55 experiencing homelessness increased by 31% over the last 5 years, which is an alarming amount. This prevailing gender inequality should drive women to find investment options that will allow them to build their wealth and live comfortably even after they retire. I'm joined today by Nuggets ESG coordinator, Amy Freshwater. Amy, it's a pleasure to have you back on the podcast. So Amy, let's get straight into it. What are the main differences between men and women that you've noticed when it comes to wealth management?
Hi, Ali. Thanks for having me back on the podcast. It's great to be here again. I think when it comes to wealth, there are some pretty clear aspects that set men and women apart. Firstly, women tend to be more sensible with their money in general and in turn take less risks. Women take more time off to look after their family, whether this is to have children or to look after elderly grandparents or other family members. And of course, we can't talk about women and money without mentioning the gender pay gap, which is still very apparent here in Australia and all over the world.
For sure, and we'll be discussing all these topics in this podcast, as well as what women can do to overcome these hurdles. There are more men in the finance and economics and industries in general, and in comparison, women tend to dominate the arts and education fields. We all know, Amy, that women and men are fundamentally different. Therefore, it's only natural that we generally have different attitudes towards investing. Amy, what is it that women usually do invest in?
This is something I had to look up. I actually wasn't sure what women were most likely to invest in because in the lead up to this, haven't been an investor myself. So interestingly, the research shows that women are more likely to invest in what's called a fixed income investment, which refers to the type of investments that pay investors a set level fixed interest or dividends. And this typically includes things like government or corporate bonds. So this type of investment offers a more steady, constant stream of income and is much less risky than investing in stocks.
It's interesting that you say, Amy, that you weren't really into investing yourself, because I can definitely relate to that. You know, before I joined the Nuggets team, I was not even thinking about this space at all. And I actually think a lot of women aren't. You know, we're not having these conversations with each other over breakfast or over lunch or at the gym. But I really think the difference is that men are. Like, I notice when I'm with my husband or my brother, they are discussing investments and they are talking about these things, but women generally aren't. And there is that kind of gender gap with that, which I think is really interesting, that we can start to have these conversations and start to really learn about this space. So, Amy, what do you think are the factors that do motivate women to invest?
I think the factors that motivate women to invest are things like stability and security. And the big one for me is financial independence. So because of that nature of women being the child bearers, having more of the domestic household load and working less over time, we're often quite dependent on our partners or the male people in our family financially. So especially during the time like I am now, where we have young children and we're working less. So I think women are becoming more motivated to invest even just small amounts over time to get started on building their financial independence and getting that back.
Absolutely. Now, Amy, we've definitely seen crypto investments on the rise over the last few years. I have quite an interesting statistic for you. Only 15% of crypto investors are female. This sort of highlights the gender imbalance in the crypto world. Amy, why do you think that women aren't investing in crypto as much as men do?
Yeah, that's interesting. I can't say I'm surprised by 15%. I know a lot of, within my friendship group, a lot of the males are already invested in crypto or at least have an interest in it. But between the females, it's not something that's really been spoken about. So I'm not surprised. I think the turnoffs for women when we're talking about crypto are that volatility, the real variations in the value over time. It can be a bit scary, and women generally prefer something more stable, like those fixed income investments that I talked about before. Women can also be not really sure where to start with crypto. It can seem quite complex at a distance, and learning to invest in it might be quite complicated. So many women are already juggling such a big mental load with their careers, their family, trying to look after their own personal well-being, go to the gym, all of those things. And they might simply feel like they can't take that extra time to learn a whole new skill. I think, yeah, women really want to take the time to try and understand something before they jump in and just do it. So men are often the opposite to that, where they're more willing to just wing it and jump in and just start without really knowing a whole lot about it.
Well, we definitely are the ultimate jugglers as women, aren't we? And I think if we look at sort of the psychology behind it all, we say men are generally more left brained, which means that they're driven generally more by facts, maths, logic, analysis, and ideas. Whereas women, we're a little bit more right brained. We have a different set of skills. We're a little bit more creative. We run more on our feelings, intuition, imagination, and arts. So for me, it's no surprise that we do see a lot more men in that type of space. Like they're better with maths and data, whereas women, we're kind of more drawn to other fields. And if we look at the fact that women are biologically more risk averse than men, um, I think the majority of women, we're less likely to invest in high risk assets. So, Amy, what do you think women can do to perhaps overcome their aversion to risk so that they can get involved in this new space of investing and fintech?
Yeah, I think it's important to say that there is this incredible opportunity in the fintech space at the moment to create that financial abundance, boost their self confidence, and find their own financial independence. So, interestingly, when I looked into this, women actually have performed better than men when it comes to investments. So, males are still dominating overall on Wall Street and the stock market, but it's women that have really been the high achievers in the background and getting better results. I was looking at a Forbes magazine article that was talking about men trading 45% more frequently than women, but the fact that women still outperformed men by almost 1 whole% per year. And there had various other studies that showed similar results, with women outperforming men and earning higher returns in the long run. So yeah, I think that trend is slowly changing. More and more women are becoming interested in fintech and getting their head around how it all works. And I think, like you said, it's a really good time to get involved.
Absolutely. It's no surprise to me, Amy, that we are the quiet achievers behind the scenes. I've got some stats here for you now, Amy. Now, these are Australian statistics, and these relate to the gender pay gap, which is my next topic for you. In Australia, women working full time earn 16 to 17% less than men. We find that female graduate starting salaries are 4.9% lower, which actually widens to a gap of 15.8% just 3 years after graduation. So not only are women graduates earning less straight out of the gate than men, but actually over time, over the first 3 years of graduation, this gap even widens even more. And 34% of single Australian women over the age of 60 are now living in income poverty. Personally, I find these statistics quite scary. I'm sure you do too. Amy, I have to ask you, how does gender inequality and the gender pay gap impact women, both in the workplace and in the way that we manage our finances?
Yeah, there's some shocking statistics, aren't they? 34% living in income poverty. That's really bad. So, I mean, recent statistics show that gender pay gap is still currently at about 17.2%, which means for every dollar that a male is earning in Australia, a female is only earning 83 cents, which, when you think about the fact that we buy at the same grocery stores, we shop at the same chemists, we rent in the same rental market and purchase property in the same property market, it's not really cutting it, is it?
Yeah, absolutely, Amy. I think it's important to mention that these are actually Australian statistics, and you'll find that there is much greater discrepancies still out there on a global scale, particularly in the developing world. I think even though we've come such a long way, there really is still a long way to go. Amy, what do you think are the key causes of the gender pay gap?
I think it's to do with the industries that women are working in. So, like you mentioned previously, those arts and education fields where females are not necessarily being paid as highly as male dominated fields such as finance or even construction. So, females are more typical to be in jobs like teaching or nursing, where we're not getting paid as much overall as males. So, I think that's probably the main cause. Lack of investment in women's job training as well. And there's still, unfortunately, some stereotypical ideas about women's roles in the workforce as well.
And Amy, if you look at this discrepancy over the course of a lifetime, it's really having a knock on effect in the differences of superannuation that men and women are being paid at retirement. So I find this actually quite alarming. Women in Australia, they retire with an average 35% less retirement savings than men. So this is a real super gender gap. Our financial lives, Amy, they can be quite complex. However, many women, they don't know who to turn to for support in a financial services industry that wasn't really built with us in mind. Amy, how does the superation system in Australia leave women at a disadvantage?
Yeah, Ali, well, like you said, there is that really large gap between men and women in Australia in terms of superannuation. And that's because the current superannuation system is directly linked to paid work. So it does overwhelmingly disadvantage women who, like we've said, are more likely to move in and out of paid work, to have children, to care for family members. Um, and women are earning less over their lifetime than men. So in addition to this, when women are returning to work, we're more likely to engage in casual and part-time work. So again, we're not going back into that full-time salary like our male counterparts. Right now, many women are living their final years below the poverty line. If we don't start acting, start changing things, there's going to be another generation of women that are going to face those similar prospects.
Absolutely, Amy. Like recent statistics, they show that around 80% of women are currently retiring with insufficient superannuation savings to fund a comfortable lifestyle. Now, when we talk about comfortable lifestyle, we're talking about basic things like being able to have a house, have a roof over your head, buy food, pay your bills, live a normal life. Amy, why exactly is the average superannuation savings for women turning out to be inadequate?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And those things you mentioned to have a comfortable lifestyle, they're really just essential human rights, aren't they? Shelter, etc. So, on average, women live longer than men. So, our life expectancy at the moment in Australia is about 4 years longer than that of men. So, with the higher life expectancy and lower super balances going into retirement, women are running out of their super much earlier. So if you think about it, a woman retiring at 65 and a man retiring at 65, both with $100,000 in their superannuation, but the woman is living 5 to 10 years longer than the man. They've got to stretch that amount over a longer period of time. So it's averaging out to be a lot less. And therefore, we've got all these women living in income poverty, okay, and not having enough money to live a comfortable lifestyle. Many women who are at home raising children or working in low paid part time jobs sometimes assume that they're going to enjoy a comfortable retirement because of their husband's superannuation. Now we know that the divorce rate is only increasing. Many women are also choosing not to get married at the moment. So, um, I think the divorce rate is rising to almost half of marriages ending in divorce. So that assumption of being able to lean on your partner's retirement is just going to prove incorrect for a large proportion of women in the long run.
Absolutely. Amy, what are some of the ways that women can safeguard their super and perhaps improve their retirement outcomes so they don't become one of these statistics?
Building savings early. So making those voluntary contributions to your superannuation or starting at some kind of retirement account early in your working life is going to make a big difference to at retirement, thanks to compounding interest. We've got to choose our super funds wisely. So, preferably only having one super fund. When you have multiple super funds, it means you're paying multiple sets of fees. And so that's not really efficient. Also, when choosing your superannuation fund, I have to put in a little environmental tip here from the ESG coordinator. There's a website called Market Forces where you can check if your super fund is investing in fossil fuels. So we know that fossil fuels are environmentally degrading for our planet. And so if your super fund is investing in fossil fuels, I'd highly recommend changing to a fund that doesn't and that invests in more renewable energy and sustainable energies. Another tip is to get advice. So I know for myself, when I started, getting super paid into my super fund, I didn't even know I had a super fund at the age of, 18, 20, whatever it was when I started having money go into my super fund. It was not until my parents brought up with me, hey, Amy, you should really be contributing to your super fund in addition to what's going in through your income. So until they brought it up with me and kind of educated me on that, I didn't really know what it was. And I think that's the case for so many young women, not knowing what super fund they're with, not knowing how much super they've got or how much is being paid. So really educating yourself on your own finances is a big one. And creating your own retirement nest egg. So putting money away today for the future, whether that's in super or it's in another account, or it's even better if you can put it into gold.
Absolutely. I think, Amy, like what you said, when we talk about these topics, knowledge really is power. And just by having these conversations, we can really shine a spotlight on the inequality of our super system. And we can hopefully create a ripple effect for much needed change, as well as kind of encourage people to do that little bit of self education and get ahead of this. There's no doubt in my mind, Amy, that women have a much bigger task when it comes to saving for their retirement. And this is why it's important that all women take some simple steps to help boost their future savings. Amy, how can women build a comfortable life for themselves even after they retire?
Yeah, so similar to those tips that I've shared, it's never too late to start investing. So even if you've got absolutely no retirement savings whatsoever, that's okay. You can still start now. And it's important to note that people aren't alone if they don't have retirement savings. It's a huge issue that spans across lots of women and people in general in Australia. So definitely not alone, but it's important to start as soon as possible. Really starting early, making those voluntary contributions early in your working life. And another point is that financial planners have said that it is important to keep your retirement savings separate from any short and medium term goals. Things like buying a house, your child's education, buying a car. So be really clear that what you're building is only to be touched after you've stopped working.
And Amy, why is it important to build those savings?
Yeah, it's important to start early, like I've said. So, not deferring your retirement plan until it's too late. Um, some people don't correctly estimate what they're going to need at retirement, or maybe are more focused on the short and medium term goals like buying a car, buying a house. It takes seconds to lose all your money, and people who've made bad investments will know that straight away, but it does take a lifetime to build savings, and unfortunately that's the way it works. So in saying this, it's really important to build healthy saving habits as young and as soon as possible, so that you've got a longer horizon to build on the compound interest. So, the compound interest, I've mentioned this a couple of times, but for those people who don't know what it is, it's basically when your money is making money. So, you've got your balance in a savings or an investment account, and that money's being reinvested. And so, it's earning you more interest. And this is what super funds do. So, they use your money to invest in things, and then you essentially make more money through that. So, the more money you have at an early time in your life, the more money that's being invested and therefore giving you a return.
Now, this kind of draws me back in, Amy, a little bit to what we do at Nuggets, which is obviously gold. And the thing about gold is that it's not only money that you can spend, but gold is also an investment and it tends to perform exceptionally well, particularly over the long term. So, Amy, can we talk a little bit about why would gold be a good investment option for women?
Yeah, of course. Like you said, it does perform exceptionally well over time, which is why starting a gold account for retirement savings is a really fantastic idea. People who've been following Nuggets or they've listened to podcasts 1 to 6 will know about the safety and stability of gold and gold as a store of value. So we know that so many monetary systems and things in the world are unstable right now. There's a lot of instability. We've got the war, we've got COVID, all of these things that are quite unstable. So we really you want to have trust in where you're putting your money. We've spoken about it in previous podcasts as well. If we compare keeping your savings in the bank in cash to storing them in gold, that money in the bank doesn't really maintain its purchasing power over time and it doesn't fight inflation the same way that gold does. So, as an example, the Australian dollar has lost more than 50% of its purchasing power just in our lifetime, give or take 30 years, whereas gold's value over the same period is up more than 465%. And this isn't even including the inflation surge that we're currently living through.
Absolutely. I just think, gold performs exceptionally well over time, which is why starting a gold account for your retirement savings is a fantastic idea. We really want to educate and empower women to invest in gold through Nuggets so they are well set up for their futures and have that financial independence and stability that is really crucial for them to live a comfortable life well into their retirement. Amy, as always, thank you so much for your input on this episode. Gender inequality is still prevalent in the workplace as well as in the fintech industry. This makes it more challenging for women to build their finances. Our vision at Nuggets is where everyone has an opportunity to prosper, and gold can certainly be used as a hedge against the monetary disadvantages that women face. You can listen to our podcast episode 2, Why Gold is a Necessary Option for You, to hear the many ways that gold can be an incredible asset in a well-balanced portfolio. Amy has also written a blog that looks at the issues we've discussed in more detail, along with some great financial tips for women. You can find this on the media section of the Nuggets website. If you're ready to invest in gold and use it in your daily life, contact us at www.nuggets.com. We would love to hear from you.
Thanks for listening to the Future is Gold podcast. For links and contact details relevant to this episode, please see the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast series so you'll know when the next episode is live. And follow Nuggets on social media for more gold standard content. Information contained within this series is general in nature and not directed to your personal situation. So please reach out to us or your financial expert for a more tailored approach. This podcast is a Story League production.